Hello, class. Welcome back. Now, let's go to lecture series 1. Lecture series 1 is on introduction and meaning of case study. So, what is case study? Or should I say, what is a case? Of course, it is impossible. God forbid that case study examiner will ask you what is case study in the exam. It is impossible, but it is necessary that at the beginning of every paper or every lecture we teach the meaning of the paper so that every student will understand what they are getting into. So, case study is a paper that draws knowledge from some other papers. Now, case study is a scenario based exam that help management students to practice, to put into practice everything they've learned in the course of their study. So, I will give you a scenario. You see, the medical students, for instance, during their period in the medical school, during their stay in the medical school, what they do is that because of course, when they graduate, when they qualify, they have to treat human beings, they have to relate with human beings, and as such they need to start putting them through that practice. They need to start getting them familiar with what they will do or what they will face in practice. And because of that, this is what they do during their course of study. They after teaching them a particular theory, let's say they teach them in classroom, they teach them the part of a body, maybe they teach them the brain or the head, for instance. So after teaching them in the classroom, they now push them to the lab. So in the lab, they group them into different groups, and each group will be provided with cadaver. Cadaver is dead body, assigned to them. Given to federal universities. I know federal university get them. State too get anyway. Those dead bodies doesn't have people to claim them, so they push them to the lab for them to for the medical student to practice with. So they give them the cadaver. Each group will be presented with cadaver, and what they've learned in the classroom will be experimented on on the cadaver. So they will open up the cadaver, look at each and every part of the head, maybe the brain that they've discussed in the classroom. And as such, this help them to get very close to reality. That is the idea. So, in fact, after the school, maybe in their second or third year, they take them to the hospital. They take them to the hospital, and they start getting used to how the hospital is being run. Okay, so that is the medical school. But to accounting student, to management student, we also have to create a platform by which we take our professional students very close to reality. And that is why case study has been designed. So whether I've known that uh whether you are writing ICANN exams, or you are writing MSc exams, because I've seen some MSc students studying in the UK. They equally come back with case study. I help them with case study. Most of them that are writing accounting or and finance related programs, so they come with case study as well. So it is designed to take management students very close to reality. And as such, it helps them to apply the models, techniques, tools that they have learned during the course of their study to real life scenarios, to real life cases. And the reason is that cases are are you know they are like a copy of what has happened in reality. Let me give you an instance. In 2020, in 2020 during the COVID, in 2020 during the COVID, in fact, we have prepared for the case study exam. We have had our Preseen. We have been given Preseen. We have analyzed it. We were set for the exam, and because of the lockdown, they had to cancel the exam. So what happened was, the at the end of the day, when we had to sit for the exam later, when our student had to sit for the exam later, the case that Icana brought, because they didn't bring the present they brought earlier, they had to bring another case. The case they brought later tested the COVID-19 scenario. It tested the COVID-19 scenario. It gave us a scenario of where a pandemic has happened, which had disrupted certain businesses, and this particular business that is the client in the case, you know, is a business like ICANN. It's just an institute like ICANN, and it has disrupted their exams, their everything, their processes, and they had to resort to online training. So they want to know, how should they invest? Should they invest in online training? Okay, even in the investment, should we do in-house uh, infrastructure development, or we employ a consultant to do it for us, or we just subscribe to an online platform to get this done? So, case study is there to give you that scenario as an accountant, where you can apply your theories, models, and techniques that you have learned your in the course of your study. So, here are three ways that you can read cases effectively. Here are three ways you can read cases effectively. You skim for an overview. You quickly look at the case. You go through over it. Look at some key headlines. You look at some key things that has been said. So you go quickly. So the other one is, after doing that, then you read actively and take notes. So after you have skimmed for an overview, then you start reading exhibit by exhibit. So while you read, you take your notes, you summarize it. In fact, what I do is I summarize in paragraphs. So each paragraph I pick and I read it, I will summarize it. Each paragraph I pick, I summarize it. And the other one is, you analyze and reflect on what you have done. So you analyze by imagining that you are to be present. In fact, that you are present in that scenario. So by doing that, it takes you very deep into that case, and it gives you a fantastic understanding of the case. Okay? Then we can talk about um, how to read a case. How to read a case. So how you should read a case is by like I said earlier, is by putting yourself in that scenario. Is by putting yourself in that scenario. As a matter of fact, so when you are reading a case about um hospitality industry, so you have to imagine that you are a player in that industry. So when you are reading a case about oil and gas industry, you have to imagine, you have to put yourself in that scenario. You have to imagine you are a player in oil and gas industry. So when you are reading a case about marketing, you have to imagine yourself being a marketer. By doing li- by doing so, you will you will be able to understand the case in a very comprehensive manner. You're able to get every detail about the case. Okay? Then then your role as an analyst in the case. What is your role as an analyst in the case? The first role you will perform is to identify the problems in the situation that is presented in the scenario. What are the real problems? What are the problems that has been that the examiner has put in the case? You have to be able to identify them. And when I'm talking about problems, I'm talking about the actual problems. Because I've seen some students some other time where they will start looking at irrelevant things, like the way the board of directors has been structured. That is the common one. They start looking at that. Meanwhile, when they go to the financials of the business, the ratios are going down already. The ratios are going down. The liquidity of the business is poor. These are the key problems in the case, and you should be able to analyze the issues within the context of whatever theory that you are asked to use. So sometimes they set certain ratios for you to use. Sometimes they use you to use they ask you to use a particular business model. Some other times they ask you to use certain appraisal techniques. So you have to be able to apply these techniques within that scenario. Then you develop and compare alternative solutions. So possibly you are asked to invest and to appraise an investment. Okay, then you have to use different appraisal techniques in order for you to pick the best appraiser. Then you consider the advantages of whatever solution you have gotten. Then you select the best solution and make recommendation for an action. And you write up your case analysis in appropriate report format. Please, in appropriate report format. It's not just anyhow report. Okay? It's not just anyhow report. And what makes a good case analysis? What makes a good case analysis? So a good case analysis must be must clearly identify the core or relevant problems in the case. It must identify the core or relevant problems in the case. So I made mention of identifying the real problems in the case the other time. So you don't end up looking at distractions. So because there are lots of distractions in the case, but you have to identify what are the issues in this case. You have to think about it. Why am I presented with this case? What are the real issues that this business is going through? Most of the time, their financials might be having they might be having problems in their financial report. Their financial might not be okay. It might be going down, sometimes maybe improving. Okay. So you have to identify that case. You have to possibly some other time they are faced with investment decision and they want you to help them out. You have to identify the issues in that investment decision. So you have to also be able to analyze those issues underlying that problem that has been presented. You use appropriate terminology, then present feasible and complementary recommendations. So, what we are saying is when you have analyzed that issue, maybe an investment decision, then you tell them what to do. Should they invest in it or not? What are the other issues they should consider before going into such investment? Then, lastly, you write an appropriate report in the standard required. Okay, again, this is coming up. Appropriate report writing is coming up again. I want you to take note of this. Okay. Then the next thing we look at is what a detailed analysis should entail. You must a detailed analysis. What detailed analysis should entail? Number one, you must investigate and analyze the complaint's history and growth. So you must know where the complaint is coming from. like like what you are being taught in audit. Before you start any audit, you must understand the business. So the same thing is applicable here. You must be able to understand the business. Where is the business coming from? How is business being run? What are the processes that the business takes Okay, you must understand it. You must be able to identify the strengths and weaknesses within the company. What are their strengths? How can they take advantage of this strength in order um to be competitive in that industry? What are the weaknesses that can limit their competitiveness? Okay, then you have to gather information on the external environment, because the external environment will have direct impact on the business. A very good example is recently when the when subsidy was removed. you know every household felt the removal of subsidy. Every business felt the removal of subsidy. So you must be able to you know analyze the impact, gather this external environment, I mean information of in the external environment and how they impact on the business. And you must be able to conduct detailed financial statement and financial data analysis. Financial statement is when you analyze the financial statement using ratios, trend, common size analysis. Okay, and financial data means when you are given a data to appraise projects. Okay, then you must be able to analyze your findings. So what is the implication of these findings? How will it impact on the business? You may be able to do that, then make conclusions and recommendations. Okay, so these are the sort of things that a detailed case analysis should entail. Then we can look at factors that distinguish successful students from the unsuccessful ones. What are those factors? The number one is good planning and strict time management. Good planning and strict time management. So you must be able to plan yourself. See, you must know what you want to go and do in the exam. You must have planned how you want to approach the exam before that day. How do I want to approach the exam? Should I start with my calculations before the first part of the report, then the second calculation before the first part of the report? How do I read the report? Should I read like 10 times? How many minutes should I take to read the report? And you have to follow those time, because there are time that has originally been allotted to all these steps in the report. So you have to plan yourself and manage your time very well, because if you are not careful, you will spend almost 2 hours in doing computations. I've had a lot of students say that. And in the real sense, it is only 1 hour that is given to you in doing your computations. You must not, once you spend more than 1 hour, you are wasting so much time. Okay, you are wasting time. The time we eat up on the report. You have 2 hours to write your report and 1 hour to read. 1 hour for reading, 1 hour for computations, 2 hours for report writing, 1 hour for reports on requirement one, 1 hour for reports on requirement two. So you have to follow this timing very well. Then quality, good quality written financial statement and financial data analysis. Okay, financial statement and financial data analysis, which I've mentioned before. Then good quality appendices cross-referenced in the body of the report. Okay, it must be correct. Your computations must be correct, must be accurate, and must be properly referenced in the body of the report. Appropriate use of relevant materials from the case. So some materials are relevant to a particular requirement. Some other ones are relevant to the other requirement. You must be able to use those ones that are relevant to each of the requirements. That is it. Then develop analysis through judgment into reasoned conclusion and recommendation. So your analysis must flow. It must flow from you identifying issues, looking at and analyzing those issues. Then when you analyze it, you look at the impact on the business. Then you can draw your conclusions and advice on what to do on those issues. Okay. Okay, then reference economic and industrial factors and ethical issues. You must bring in economic factors like inflation, unemployment, political instability, and all those issues in the external environment and their impact on the business. Then you demonstrate professional skepticism. That is, you question the data and information given to you as a professional. You don't just take in information given to you as being 100% complete. No, that is wrong. So you must be able to question that information, right? Then proofread your work and write a well structured report. This is the third time this is coming up again. Why? It means this is very important. Your report must be well structured. All right. Now, let's go to the next thing. What candidate need to do in order to be successful in case study exam? So this is more like a repetition of what I've just said. Understand the business situation. Is it a startup? Because this understanding will help you to, you know, go into in detail about certain issues that it might be facing at different stages of the business. If it's a startup, it will likely not be making profit. If it's experiencing growth, yes, maybe it's just making the profit. The profit might be coming in. You must be able to understand this. Then remember that marks are awarded for clear demonstration of professional skills. So case study is about professional skills. There are certain skills that want to be that the examiner want to test. So it is you demonstrating these skills that will fetch you mark in the exam. So you have to remember this. You have to understand and deal with the requirement in the case. So, because this is what makes you relevant, you see, this is what makes you relevant. You have to focus on the case. And as a matter of fact, some students have seen them, they will abandon the case. The case we ask them to, let's say, the case we say, oh, this is what we want you to do in this case. When you are analyzing the financial statement, look at the profitability, look at the liquidity, and look at the working capital. But some students they want to do I too know, and they will start computing investors' ratios. They will start computing some other ratios so that they know ratios very well, or so that they can know they've practiced so many ratios. That will not make you relevant. You are going off the point. You are going off the requirement. Then the skills and competency needed cannot be developed in few days before the exam. You have to practice your ratios and be perfect about them. Practice your appraisal techniques in the SFM and PM. Practice them very well and be perfect. You see, practice how to do these things in time. What I'm saying is you have to be fast about those things, because you cannot waste time doing ratios, doing some computation, and you waste a lot of time. No, you have to be fast about this thing. Then apply your professional skepticism, like I've said before. Evaluate the outcome of your analysis. Then develop clear conclusions and state reservations. That is skepticism. Then you make recommendations based on your analysis. And for the fourth time, you produce a well structured report. You produce a well structured which will include executive summary and appropriate appendices by using suitable language to communicate your ideas to your audience. A well structured report with a very simple language that anybody that picks the report will understand what you have said. Not that you start writing, some of you write with even bad English, that when someone picks it, the person will be struggling to understand what you have written. No, you have to write as if you are communicating to kids. So you put yourself in the position of a teacher teaching kids. So no matter what you say, the kids must understand. And that is what has helped me in my writing. So I always imagine that I'm teaching kids. So I want to break it down into a very simple language. Okay. And it is essential that you develop a structured approach to case study. So what is the approach that you want to use? What is it? Do you want to do all your computations first before you start reporting? And the best approach is that before you write your report under each requirement, the first thing is to do the computation, then write report for requirement one. Do the computation for requirement one before requirement two before you write the report. Okay. All right. So how do you deal with case study material before and in the exam? So the presim must be read. You must have studied the presim very well. As a matter of fact, there's no need for you to read the presim inside the exam hall again, because it will amount to a waste of time. Maybe you just skim over it to check whether anything is new. Of course, nothing will be new in the presim. Then you start by reading the case study requirement. Study the requirement, note your role very well. Note your role very, very well. Then read through the entire case. That is the unseen. You read the unseen too. Read the unseen. Read the unseen like twice. Then you reread the requirement again, and you read the preseen and the unseen together, while making sure that each exhibit you are able to understand every detail given. Then look at the numerical data given to you. Look at the financial statement. Look at it, just you know. Then look at maybe there's some other financial data given to you. Then start your analytical work and write a fantastic report. So I usually like to make this analogy when I'm starting out my lecture in case study every diet. I like to show our students the similarities between the doctors, the medical professions, and the accounting profession, the chartered accountant. So these two professionals, at the peak of their career, they become consultants. That is when you see the medical doctors. We after getting his license, we build his own hospital and start attending to patients. The same thing is applicable to chartered accountants. They become auditors. Some become, yes, auditors and consultants, and they start attending to businesses. So the thing is that the two clients that they have are are human beings. That is what I want to say. They both attend to human beings. The medical doctors attend to, yes, um natural or real human beings. But we attend to who? We attend to artificial human beings. Yes, that was what we were taught in business law, and that is the reality. Their businesses are artificial human beings. So the first stage is known as diagnosis. When a patient comes to a doctor, is known as diagnosis, which is a stage whereby the medical doctor starts to ask questions in order to understand the present condition of the patient very well. So through some questions to get the history of the patient, you know, you want to know the history of the patient so that, yes, maybe such present condition has been experienced by past, maybe the grandparents and all that. So the doctor wants to know that. Then you look at the symptoms and try to start to imagine what could be the reason, right? The same thing is applicable in to chartered accountants. You know, when you are given information, you have to look at the financial. Then you start to see what could have happened, what could have led to this present financial report. Okay, then you equally look at some other information given to you about the business. Okay, then the medical doctors will not just conclude that this is the particular medical issue that the patient is having. So you will rather subject the patient to series of tests, do x-ray, blood tests, and so many other things. But what we do is either we conduct audits, we do financial analysis, we evaluate the internal control of the business in order to identify what the actual issue is. Then the patient brings in the test result, which is what the doctor will now interpret. look at the results, interpret it in order to identify the real medical condition. The same thing is applicable to us. Then we have to do our ratio analysis, profitability, and all the other analysis. We evaluate projects and all that in order to know whether it is profitable or not, whether they are making profit or not. Okay. Okay. So after that, the doctor gets to conclude that, oh, this is the problem that you are having. This is a sign of possible stroke. This is a sign of this is a sign of that. This is what you are having. Then we also conclude by saying that, oh, this is liquidity problem in this business. Yeah, what you have been experiencing is, you don't have cash, you don't have this. It's a sign of liquidity problem. So the problem you're having is liquidity problem. And these are the things that you will do. So the medical doctor prescribe drugs to solve that problem, while we make recommendations in order to solve the problems that we have identified. Now, what I have just described to you as it is what is applicable in reality, and it is the same process that case study will take, or that you will follow in case study. Okay? So this is the end of lecture series 1, and I hope to see you soon in lecture series 2. Goodbye.